The alien species of the galaxy had learned one important lesson about humans. They were dangerous, very dangerous. Every race that had ever tried to fight them had lost badly. The humans did not have the best weapons. They did not have the biggest ships, but they had something else. Something that made other species nervous. They never gave up. The story spread from planet to planet. There was the Battle of Crick 7, where human soldiers turned farming equipment into weapons when their guns ran out. There was the Siege of New Boston, where humans fought for 3 months without supplies or reinforcements. There was the famous incident at the Corvin Gate, where a single human pilot crashed his damaged ship into an enemy command carrier rather than retreat. Other species found these stories disturbing. Most races in the galaxy believed in logical warfare. You fought when you had advantage. You retreated when you were losing. You surrendered when defeat was certain. Humans did none of these things in the way others expected. They fought when they were outnumbered. They attacked when they should have defended. They won battles they should have lost. This made the Galactic Council very careful around humans. Nobody wanted a war with them. Not because humans were the strongest, but because they were unpredictable and stubborn. A war with humans would be expensive and long. Even if you won, the cost would be terrible. But the galaxy only knew about human regular forces. Their fleets, their marines, their standard military units. They had no idea what else humans had created. They did not know about the special forces. The elite units, the soldiers who operated in shadows and silence. The Keller Collective was about to learn this lesson the hard way. The Keller were a proud species. They had 4 legs, hard shells like armor, and strong bodies. They believed in power and control. When they negotiated with other species, they often used threats. This worked with most races. Most species in the galaxy preferred peace and would make deals to avoid conflict. So when 3 human diplomats came to discuss a trade agreement, the Keller leaders thought they saw an opportunity. Humans wanted mining rights in Keller space. The Keller wanted human technology and territory. If they held the diplomats hostage, maybe the humans would give them better terms. Maybe the humans would be afraid. This was a mistake. Ambassador Richard Grant sat in his cell with his 2 assistants, Caroline Webb and Peter Lynch. They had been prisoners for 6 days now. The cell was small and cold. The Keller guards checked on them every few hours but said nothing. Richard spent his time watching and learning. He noticed when the guards changed shifts. He saw which ones were alert and which ones were lazy. He counted the footsteps in the corridor outside. "Do you think anyone is coming for us?" Caroline asked quietly. She tried to stay brave, but her voice shook a little. "They are coming," Richard said with certainty. "The question is not if. The question is when." "How can you be so sure?" Peter asked. Richard smiled. "Because I know my people. We do not leave our own behind. Ever." Far away from the Keller station, a human warship moved through space. The ship was called the Valiant. It was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was fast and well armed. On the bridge stood Commander Jake Morrison. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been in the military for 20 years. He had seen many battles, but this mission was different. This was not a battle. This was a rescue. And for a rescue, he had special passengers on his ship. "Exit from hyperspace in 30 seconds," called Lieutenant Amy Price from her station. She was young but skilled at her job. Jake nodded. "All teams prepare for deployment," he said into the ship's communication system. Deep inside the Valiant, in a special bay that most of the crew never entered, 12 people prepared for war. They wore black armor that seemed to drink the light. Their weapons were compact but deadly. Their helmets had advanced systems that could see in darkness and through walls. These were not regular soldiers. These were the members of Task Force Phantom. Special Operations. The best of the best, Captain Lisa Hayes led the team. She was shorter than most soldiers, but nobody who saw her work ever questioned her ability. She had trained for 15 years to reach this level. Every member of her team had similar stories. Years of brutal training, thousands of hours of practice, tests that most people could not pass. They were volunteers. Nobody was forced into special operations. You had to want it badly enough to endure the training. "Listen up," Lisa said to her team. Her voice was calm and professional. "The Keller think they are safe. They think their station is secure. They have guards and sensors and weapons. They believe no one can reach them without starting a war." She smiled slightly. It was not a kind smile. "They are wrong. We are going to walk into their station." We are going to take our people back, and we are going to leave before they understand what happened. The Keller have 4-second reaction time to what they see. Their hearing is worse than ours. We move faster than they can track. We use that advantage. Sergeant Danny Cruz checked his weapon. He was the team's demolitions expert. How many guards? He asked. Intelligence says 40 on duty at any time, maybe 60 if they are on alert. Most are concentrated at the main docking ports and command center. The detention area where our people are held has only light security. They do not expect an attack from inside. How are we getting inside? Asked another operator. 2 teams, 2 entry points. Team Alpha goes through the waste recycling system. Team Bravo uses an unused docking collar on the station's far side. The collar has been abandoned for 3 years. Their sensors on that section are not maintained. Once inside, we move fast and quiet. Neutralize guards without killing if possible. We are here to rescue, not to start a massacre. The operators nodded. They understood. Special Forces work was not about killing. It was about precision, about achieving the objective with minimal force. Every death created problems. Bodies meant investigations and anger and calls for revenge. Better to leave enemies alive but unconscious. The Valiant reached the edge of Keller space and stopped. They were far enough away that the station's sensors would not detect them easily. 2 small shuttles launched from the ship's bay. They were stealth shuttles, coated in materials that absorbed sensor scans. To most detection systems, they looked like space debris or small asteroids. Inside the shuttles, the operators sat in silence. Each person dealt with pre-mission tension in their own way. Some closed their eyes and breathed slowly. Others checked equipment again and again. Danny hummed an old song under his breath. Lisa reviewed the mission plan one more time in her head. She thought about the 3 diplomats waiting in that cell. They did not know help was coming. They were probably scared and tired. That was okay. Fear was natural. What mattered was that they would go home. Task Force Phantom had never failed a rescue mission. Every person they were sent to save came home alive. Lisa intended to keep that record perfect. The shuttles drifted closer to the station. They moved slowly, using small thruster bursts to adjust course. Fast movement attracted attention. Slow movement looked natural. It took 2 hours to cover the last few kilometers. 2 hours of patient, careful approach. Finally, the shuttles were in position. Team Alpha near the recycling ports. Team Bravo beside the old docking collar. Lisa looked at her team. They looked back at her. No words were needed. They all knew what to do. All teams, Lisa whispered into her helmet communicator. We are now on mission clock. From this moment, we are ghosts. We do not exist. Move silent, move fast. Bring our people home. The teams exited their shuttles and moved toward the station. They crossed the empty space between ships and station in absolute silence. Their suits had small thrusters that made no visible flame. They looked like dark shapes drifting in the void. The Keller station rotated slowly ahead of them. Inside, guards walked their patrols. Sensors scanned for threats. The station commander sat in his office, confident that he held 3 valuable prisoners and that the humans would negotiate for their return. He had no idea that 12 human operators were about to teach him why the galaxy should fear more than just human fleets. The shadows were coming, and humans owned the shadows. The docking collar was old and covered in space dust. No ship had used it in years. The Keller had built it when the station was new, then abandoned it when they expanded the main docking area. The external door still worked, but barely. Perfect for what Team Bravo needed. Danny floated up to the door with 2 other operators. He pulled out a small device from his belt. It was a lock bypass tool, something humans had perfected over centuries of breaking into places they were not supposed to be. The device connected to the door's control panel and began running through codes. It took 18 seconds. The door opened with a slight hiss. Bravo inside, Danny whispered. Going dark. Team Bravo slipped through the door and sealed it behind them. They could not leave it open because the air loss would trigger alarms. Inside the airlock, they moved to the inner door. This one was easier. It had a manual override that was supposed to be locked. It was not. The Keller had stopped maintaining this section years ago. On the other side of the station, Team Alpha had a worse job. The recycling intake was exactly what it sounded like. This was where the station's waste processing system drew in materials. It smelled bad and the opening was small, but it was also completely unguarded because nobody expected an attack through the garbage. Lisa went first. She used a molecular cutter to slice through the intake screen. The cutter was a human invention, a tool that could cut almost anything without making noise or heat. The screen fell away and Lisa pulled herself into the intake tunnel. It was dark and narrow and disgusting. She did not care. She had trained in worse places. Her team followed one by one. They moved through the tunnel until they reached an access panel. Beyond that panel was a maintenance corridor. Lisa listened carefully at the panel. Her helmet sensors detected no movement on the other side. She slowly opened the panel and looked out. The corridor was empty. Plain gray walls, harsh lighting, and cold air, typical Keller architecture. They did not believe in comfort or decoration. Everything was functional and efficient. Alpha is inside, Lisa reported. Moving to target. Both teams were now in the station. They moved through different sections, heading toward the detention level where the hostages were held. Their armor had special coating that confused the Keller sensors. The sensors were designed to detect all known species in the galaxy, but they had never been tested against humans who were actively trying to hide. Humans had spent thousands of years developing stealth technology, not for space combat but for ground operations, for sneaking into enemy territory, for moving unseen through hostile areas. By the time humans reached the stars, they had perfected the art of not being detected. Team Bravo moved down a corridor when a Keller guard appeared ahead. He was walking a routine patrol, not expecting any problems. Danny signaled to his team. They pressed against the walls, perfectly still. The guard walked closer. His 4 legs made clicking sounds on the metal floor. He passed within 2 meters of the human operators and never saw them. When he passed, Danny moved. He was fast. Faster than the Keller could react. Danny's hand struck a nerve cluster on the guard's neck. The Keller went limp immediately. 2 other operators caught the body and dragged it into a side room. They secured the guard with restraints and moved on. No alarms, no noise. The guard would wake up in a few hours with a headache and no memory of what happened. Lisa's team encountered a similar situation. 3 Keller guards at an intersection. They were talking to each other, relaxed and bored. Night shift on a secure station was usually quiet. Nothing ever happened. Team Alpha moved like coordinated shadows. 3 operators, 3 guards, 3 simultaneous attacks. The guards dropped without making a sound. Pressure points, nerve strikes, techniques humans had developed in unarmed combat training that dated back thousands of years. The Keller had hard shells, but they still had vulnerable spots. You just had to know where to hit. The teams converged on the detention level. This was the dangerous part. The hostages were in a cell block that had guards at the entrance. These guards were more alert, because they were protecting something important. Lisa studied them through a corner-mounted camera that Danny had hacked earlier. 2 guards at the main door, both armed with energy weapons, both wearing full armor. Taking them down silently would be difficult. But Task Force Phantom did not do things the easy way. They did things the right way. Bravo team, can you create a distraction 2 corridors over? Lisa asked. Affirmative, Danny replied. Give me 30 seconds. Danny placed a small device on the wall. It was a sound emulator. When activated, it would create noise like someone walking, talking, and working. To the Keller guards, it would sound like activity in a restricted area. They would have to investigate the device activated. Through the camera, Lisa watched the 2 guards react. They looked at each other. One spoke into a communicator. They argued briefly about who should check the noise. Finally, both guards left their post and walked down the corridor toward the sound. Move now, Lisa said. Team Alpha rushed to the cell door. Lisa pulled out a data spike and jammed it into the door's control panel. The spike was another human tool, designed to extract access codes directly from computer systems. It worked in 3 seconds. The door unlocked. Inside the cell, Ambassador Richard Grant stood immediately. He had heard the door and expected Keller guards. Instead, he saw armored figures that were clearly human. His face showed relief and something like pride. Ambassador Grant, I am Captain Hayes. We are taking you home, Lisa said quickly. About time, Richard said with a slight smile. Caroline, Peter, let us move. The 2 assistants stood up. They looked tired and scared, but determined. Lisa positioned the hostages in the middle of her team. Operators in front, operators behind, hostages protected in the center. This was standard rescue formation. We need to move fast now, Lisa explained. Stay between us. If we tell you to get down, you get down immediately. If we tell you to run, you run. Understood? All three hostages nodded. Good. Let's go home. The combined team moved back through the station. They had the hostages now. The hard part was done, but they still needed to get out without starting a firefight. Every minute they stayed increased the chance of detection. They were almost to the docking collar when luck ran out. A Keller officer was walking past an intersection when he saw the group. For a moment he just stared. His brain could not process what he was seeing. Humans, inside the station. With the prisoners, it made no sense. Then his training kicked in and he reached for his alarm trigger. Danny shot him, not with a lethal weapon but with a stunner. The Keller officer collapsed, but his hand had already touched the alarm panel. Red lights began flashing throughout the station. A loud siren started wailing. All teams, we are now loud, Lisa said calmly. Weapons free on any hostile that threatens the packages. Move fast, the team broke into a run. The hostages ran with them. Behind them they could hear Keller guards responding to the alarm. Footsteps, shouts. The sound of weapons being charged. They reached a corridor that led to the docking collar. A Keller security team had arrived first and blocked the path. 12 guards with heavy weapons. They had set up a defensive position and were ready for a fight. Contact front, one operator called out. Lisa assessed the situation instantly. A frontal assault would work, but someone might get hurt. The hostages might be hit by stray fire. That was not acceptable. She needed another way. Danny, can you drop the ceiling? She asked. Give me 10 seconds, Danny replied. He pulled 2 small charges from his pack and threw them at support beams on the corridor ceiling. The charges stuck. Danny triggered them remotely. The explosions were precise. The charges did not breach the hull or cause decompression. They just weakened the ceiling supports. A large section of ceiling material collapsed, blocking the corridor and forcing the Keller guards to retreat from the falling debris. Alternate route. Maintenance shaft 7, Lisa directed. The team changed direction. They knew the station layout by heart. Every member had studied the blueprints for days before the mission. They moved through a series of maintenance corridors that were too small for the Keller's 4-legged bodies, but perfect for humans. They reached the docking collar. The shuttle was waiting, door open, engines warming up. The hostages were loaded first. They scrambled aboard with help from the operators. Then Team Alpha entered. Then Team Bravo. Lisa was the last one on board. All packages secure. All operators accounted for. Go, she ordered. The shuttle detached from the station and fired its engines at maximum thrust. Behind them, the Keller station was a chaos of alarms and confused orders. The Keller commander was screaming at his security chief. How had the humans gotten inside? How had they defeated all the guards? How had they escaped with the prisoners? The shuttle burned hard for open space. Keller fighters were launching now, but they were too slow. By the time they reached weapon range, the shuttle had met up with the Valiant. The big warship's shields came up. The Keller fighters did not pursue. They knew better than to attack a human warship. On the Valiant's bridge, Commander Jake Morrison received the confirmation he had been waiting for. Phantom Lead reports all packages secure. 0 casualties on our side. Minimal casualties on their side, reported Lieutenant Amy Price. The news of the Keller rescue spread through the galaxy faster than a hyperspace jump. Within 3 days, every major government knew what had happened. Within a week, detailed reports were being analyzed by military intelligence agencies on 100 different worlds. The reactions were mixed, but mostly they were fear. At the Galactic Council headquarters, a massive station that orbited neutral space, representatives from dozens of species gathered for an emergency session. The chamber was huge and circular with seats arranged in tiers. Each species had their own section with translation equipment and environmental controls. Some breathed oxygen, some breathed methane, some did not breathe at all. But they all shared one concern. Humans High Enforcer Krell of the Kellor Collective stood at the speaker's platform. His shell armor gleamed under the chamber lights. He was angry and humiliated but trying to maintain dignity. The humans violated our sovereignty, Krell said. His words were translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. They conducted a military operation inside our territory without permission, without warning, without declaration of war. This cannot be tolerated. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species agreed. The idea of foreign special forces operating in your space was terrifying. If humans could do this to the Keller, they could do it to anyone. The human representative stood. Her name was Ambassador Linda Martinez. She was in her 50s with gray hair and calm brown eyes. She had been a diplomat for 30 years. She had negotiated treaties, ended conflicts, and prevented wars. She knew how to talk to aliens, but she also knew when to be firm. High Enforcer Krell, Linda said. Her voice was steady and clear. Your government kidnapped 3 of our citizens. You held them prisoner for 6 days. You made ransom demands. What did you expect us to do? We expected negotiation, Krell replied. We expected you to follow diplomatic protocols. We did not expect a military assault on a civilian station. It was not an assault, Linda corrected. It was a rescue. An assault would have involved destroying your station and everyone on it. We sent 12 operators who neutralized your guards without killing anyone and extracted our people safely. We could have done much worse. A Vorlian counselor spoke up. The Vorlians were a crystalline species who communicated through light patterns. The translation system rendered her thoughts into words. Ambassador Martinez, we understand your people were taken illegally. But the methods you used were shocking. How did your forces penetrate a secure military station so easily? Linda paused before answering. This was the real question. This was what everyone wanted to know. How had humans done it? We trained for it, Linda said simply. Special operations have been part of human warfare for thousands of years. Before we had space travel, before we had advanced technology, we had soldiers who specialized in difficult missions. Rescue operations, infiltration, reconnaissance, we have refined these skills over millennia. But your technology, the Vorlian pressed. Your stealth systems defeated our best sensors. Those sensors are supposed to detect any known species. Linda smiled slightly. Then perhaps you should test them more thoroughly. We did not use any equipment that violates council regulations. We simply used what we had more effectively than you expected. In the back of the chamber, the Zetharian delegation listened carefully. The Zetharians were humanity's biggest rival for power and influence in the council. They were a militaristic race with a large fleet and strong economy. They had assumed that in any conflict with humans they would have the advantage. Now they were not so sure. Ambassador Vorn of the Zetharian Empire stood. He was tall and covered in scaled armor that looked like metal. Ambassador Martinez, your military just demonstrated capabilities that exceed all known special forces in the galaxy. We must ask, how many of these operators do you have? Enough, Linda replied. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you will get. We do not discuss the size or composition of our special operations forces. But I will tell you this. We have enough to protect our citizens anywhere in council space. Anyone who takes a human hostage should expect a response. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species were outraged. Others were impressed. Many were simply afraid. The vote that followed was predictable. The council passed a motion condemning the Keller hostage situation, but also requesting that humans provide advance warning before conducting future operations. Linda voted yes on the motion. It meant nothing. If someone took humans, Task Force Phantom would respond immediately. They would not wait for council permission or diplomatic approval. But voting yes made the other species feel better, and that was part of diplomacy. After the session ended, Linda returned to the human embassy. She found Commander Jake Morrison and Captain Lisa Hayes waiting for her. They had watched the whole council session on a live feed. That went about as expected, Jake said. They are scared, Linda agreed. Which is good. Fear prevents stupidity. The Keller learned a lesson. Maybe others will learn it too. Or maybe they will try to develop countermeasures, Lisa suggested. They know we have these capabilities now. They will try to stop us. Let them try, Linda said. We have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. Every tactic we use, every strategy we employ, was designed to beat opponents who think like us. Alien species are actually easier to predict than other humans. This was the truth that the galaxy was slowly learning. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest or the smartest or the most advanced, but they were the most experienced at warfare. While other species had fought occasional conflicts, humans had perfected the art of organized violence. They had generals who studied battles from 3,000 years ago. They had training programs based on lessons learned across centuries of combat. They had institutional knowledge of warfare that no other species could match, and their special forces represented the peak of this knowledge. News of the rescue reached other parts of the galaxy. On worlds where humans were posted as diplomats or traders or scientists, The locals suddenly became more polite, more cooperative. No one wanted to be the next example of what happened when you threatened humans. Pirate groups that had occasionally taken human ships hostage quietly stopped. The risk was no longer worth the reward. Several pirate bases that had held human prisoners suddenly released them with apologies. They had seen what happened to the Keller and wanted no part of that. In the Zetharian Empire, military planners held emergency meetings. General Vex, their top strategic commander, reviewed footage of the Keller operation for days. He watched the human operators move through the station. He analyzed their tactics. He noted their speed, coordination, and efficiency. "Can we do this?" asked one of his junior officers. "No," Vex said bluntly. "Not at this level. We have special forces. Every major military has special forces. But the humans have perfected it. Look at this." He replayed a section of footage showing a human operator taking down 3 Keller guards in 4 seconds. That is not just training. That is cultural. Humans have been doing this for so long it is in their blood. Then how do we defend against it? Vex was quiet for a long moment. "We do not provoke them. We do not give them reason to send these operators after us. And if we ever fight a war with humans, we do not assume we can hold human prisoners safely." On Earth, at a secure training facility hidden in mountains, Task Force Phantom returned to their normal duties. The Keller mission was added to their record. Another successful rescue. Another group of citizens brought home safely, but the training never stopped. Every day they practiced shooting, hand-to-hand combat, infiltration techniques, medical skills, languages, technology. The training was brutal and constant because their missions were brutal and constant. Lisa stood in front of a new group of candidates. These were soldiers who had volunteered for special operation selection. Most would fail. The failure rate was over 80%. Only the most dedicated, most skilled, most mentally tough candidates would pass. This was by design. Task Force Phantom could not afford weak links. "You are here because you think you are good enough," Lisa told the candidates. "You probably are not. Most of you will quit in the first week. Some will quit today. A few might make it through selection and fail in training. Maybe 1 or 2 of you will actually join an operational team." She paced in front of them. "The galaxy thinks we are monsters. They think we are unstoppable killers. They are wrong. We are soldiers, professionals. We do not kill unless we have to. We do not destroy unless necessary. Our job is to solve problems with minimal force and maximum precision." One candidate raised his hand. "Captain, why do we train so hard? Why not just use more force?" "Because force creates problems," Lisa explained. "Every person we kill creates enemies. Every building we destroy creates anger. Our goal is not to win battles. Our goal is to complete missions without starting wars. That requires skill. That requires training. That requires being better than everyone else." She looked at each candidate. The Keller operation looked easy. 12 operators walk into a station, grab 3 hostages, walk out. Simple. But behind that simple mission were months of planning, thousands of hours of training, years of experience. We made it look easy because we are professionals. That is what you are trying to become. 3 months passed since the Keller incident. The galaxy had settled into a new normal. Everyone was more careful around humans now. Diplomatic incidents involving human citizens dropped by 60%. Pirate attacks on human ships stopped almost completely. Even minor disputes at border stations were resolved quickly and politely. But fear only worked as long as people remembered to be afraid. And some groups always thought they were smarter than everyone else. The Frontier Liberation Movement was a separatist group operating in Zetharian space. They wanted independence for several border worlds. The Zetharian government refused to negotiate. The conflict had been going on for 5 years with occasional violence but no major battles. Both sides were tired, but neither would give up. The movement decided they needed leverage, something to force the Zetharians to negotiate, something that would attract galaxy-wide attention. They decided to take human hostages. 2 human engineers, Scott Palmer and Jenny Brooks, were working at a mining operation on the border world of Terex 4. They were there as independent contractors, helping upgrade the mining equipment. The job was supposed to take 3 months. They had been there for 2 months with no problems. Then the movement attacked the mining facility. It happened at night. 20 armed fighters stormed the compound. They killed 2 Zetharian guards who tried to resist. They rounded up the workers and searched for high-value targets. When they found Scott and Jenny, they knew they had what they needed. The two humans were separated from the other workers and taken to a hidden base in the mountains. The movement sent a message to both the Zetharian government and the human embassy. Their demands were simple. Release all political prisoners held by the Zetharians. Begin negotiations for independence. Do this within 1 week or the hostages would be killed. The message reached Ambassador Linda Martinez within 6 hours of the kidnapping. She read it twice. Then she contacted the Zetharian government. We have a situation, she told Ambassador Vorn. We are aware, Vorn replied. His voice was tense. The frontier liberation movement has gone too far this time. Taking your citizens was foolish. It was more than foolish. It was a death sentence, Linda said bluntly. We are going to extract our people. You can either help us or stay out of the way. But we are going in. You do not have authorization to conduct military operations in Zetharian space. We do not need authorization. We need coordinates. Where is their base? Vorn was quiet for a moment. He understood the situation. If he refused to cooperate, the humans would go in anyway and the Zetharian government would look weak. If he cooperated, at least he could maintain some control over the situation. Give us 6 hours to locate them, Vorn said finally. We have intelligence assets tracking the movement. We will share what we have. 6 hours, Linda agreed. After that, we go with whatever information we have. The message went out immediately to Commander Jake Morrison on the Valiant. The ship was 3 days away at normal speed, but Jake did not use normal speed. He pushed the engines to maximum and cut travel time in half. 36 hours after the kidnapping, the Valiant was in orbit over Terex 4. In the deployment bay, Lisa Hayes briefed her team. They had spent the travel time gathering intelligence and planning the operation. The Zetharians had been surprisingly cooperative, sharing detailed information about the movement's base location, guard strength, and layout. The base is in a mountain valley, 60 kilometers from the mining site, Lisa explained. She projected a holographic map showing the terrain. 20 to 30 fighters total. Mix of light and heavy weapons. 2 entrances. Multiple buildings. Our people are being held in the central structure. Air defenses? Asked Danny Cruz. Minimal. They have shoulder-fired missiles, but nothing sophisticated. We can get in fast and low, hit them before they can react. Rules of engagement? Lisa's expression hardened. These people have already killed 2 Zetharian guards. They have threatened to execute our people. Weapons are free. If they resist, put them down. But remember, some of these fighters are local civilians who joined the cause. If they surrender, we take them prisoner. The team nodded. They understood the distinction. Enemy combatants who fought would be neutralized with whatever force necessary. But civilians who gave up were not to be harmed. This was the balance that special operations required. Decisive action, but proportional response. 2 stealth shuttles launched from the Valiant at midnight local time. They flew low and fast, using terrain masking to avoid detection. The mountains of Terex 4 were rugged and beautiful, with deep valleys and sharp peaks. Perfect country for hiding a base. Also perfect for an assault because there were multiple approach vectors. The shuttles split up. Team Alpha would hit the main entrance. Team Bravo would come in through a back route that intelligence indicated was lightly guarded. The plan was simple. Fast insertion. Overwhelming force. Secure the hostages. Extract before reinforcements could arrive. The movement had posted guards, but they were not expecting an attack. The Zetharian government had never sent forces into this valley. It was too politically risky. The guards were mainly watching for local threats, not a special operations team dropping from the sky. Team Alpha's shuttle came in behind a ridge and landed 200 meters from the base entrance. The operators exited quickly and moved through the darkness. They wore night vision equipment that turned the dark valley into shades of green. They could see perfectly while the enemy was nearly blind. The entrance had 2 guards. They were standing near a fire trying to stay warm in the cold mountain air. They had rifles, but they were not being particularly alert. One was talking. The other was looking at something on a datapad. Lisa made hand signals. 2 operators moved forward silently. They used tranquilizer rounds this time. The guards dropped without making noise. The operators caught the bodies and moved them away from the entrance. Alpha at main entrance. 2 guards neutralized. Moving inside, Team Bravo approached from the opposite direction. They climbed a steep slope that the movement fighters thought was too difficult to use as an approach. It was difficult for normal soldiers. But human special operations trained in worse terrain. They reached the back entrance and found it poorly secured. One guard who was half asleep. Danny woke him up with a tranquilizer dart. The guard collapsed. Team Bravo entered the building. Inside the base was a network of prefabricated buildings connected by covered walkways. Lisa's team moved through the main structure, clearing rooms one by one. Most of the fighters were asleep. Those who were awake were dealt with quickly and quietly. Tranquilizers, nerve strikes, restraints. The operators moved like ghosts. They found the hostage room in the center of the complex. 2 guards outside the door. Both were eliminated silently. Lisa opened the door carefully. Inside, Scott Palmer and Jenny Brooks sat on basic cots. They looked tired and scared but unharmed. Scott stood up when the door opened, ready to fight if necessary. Then he saw the armored figures with human weapons and equipment. "Are you two okay?" Lisa asked quickly. "We are now," Jenny said. Relief flooded her voice. "Good, we are leaving. Stay close and do what we tell you." The extraction should have been smooth. Both teams had the hostages. Most of the enemy fighters were unconscious or restrained. The shuttles were waiting. Then someone triggered an alarm. A fighter who had been hiding in a storage room saw the operators and hit an emergency button. Loud sirens started blaring throughout the base. Lights came on. Fighters who had been asleep grabbed weapons and rushed toward the center of the base. "We are loud," Lisa announced. "All teams, weapons free. Get to the extraction point now." The teams moved fast. They had the hostages in the middle of formation, protected by operators on all sides. Movement fighters appeared in doorways and corridors. Some tried to fight. They were shot. Some tried to take cover. They were bypassed. Some froze in confusion. They were left alone. The humans moved with devastating efficiency. Every corner was checked. Every threat was identified and neutralized. The movement fighters were brave, but they were not professionals. They had never faced anything like this. Danny reached the back entrance first with Team Bravo and half the hostages. Scott Palmer ran with the operators, his engineering legs not quite keeping up with the soldiers. Behind them, automatic weapons fire echoed through the complex. The movement was trying to organize a defense, but it was too late. Team Alpha fought through the main entrance with Jenny Brooks. 3 fighters tried to block the exit. They had heavy weapons and were in a defensible position, but they made the mistake of staying where they were instead of moving. Lisa threw a flashbang grenade. The explosion of light and sound overwhelmed the fighters' senses. Team Alpha rushed through the entrance while the fighters were stunned. 2 operators shot the fighters with non-lethal rounds. They went down. The team kept moving. Both teams reached their shuttles within minutes. The hostages were loaded. The operators boarded. The shuttles lifted off as more fighters poured out of the buildings below. A few shoulder-fired missiles launched, but the shuttles deployed countermeasures. The missiles exploded harmlessly, 23 minutes from insertion to extraction. 2 hostages rescued, 0 human casualties. Approximately 15 enemy fighters neutralized. 6 months had passed since the Terex 4 rescue. The pattern was clear now to everyone in the galaxy. Take humans hostage and armed operators would appear within days to bring them home. The method was proven. The results were consistent. The message was unmistakable, but the Galactic Council was worried. Not about humans rescuing their citizens. That was understandable. What worried the Council was the precedent. If humans could conduct military operations in sovereign space whenever they wanted, what stopped other species from doing the same? What stopped powerful nations from ignoring borders and laws? A special session was called. Every major species sent representatives. The chamber was full and tense. The topic was simple but dangerous. How should the Council regulate special operations by member nations? Ambassador Linda Martinez knew this session would be difficult. She had spent weeks preparing arguments and consulting with military advisors. She understood what the other species wanted. They wanted rules, limits, assurances. They wanted to feel safe from human special forces. She could not give them that. Not in the way they wanted. The session opened with speeches from various representatives. The Keller talked about sovereignty. The Vorlians discussed security concerns. The Zetharians argued for better oversight. Everyone agreed that something needed to be done about the human special operations problem. Finally, it was Linda's turn to speak. She walked to the central platform and looked around at the hundreds of representatives from dozens of worlds. "I have listened to your concerns," she began. Her voice was calm and clear. "You are worried about human special forces. You are worried about what we can do. You want regulations and restrictions and oversight. I understand why you feel this way. But I need to explain something to you." She paused to let the translators catch up. "Humans do not negotiate about protecting our citizens. We do not ask permission. We do not wait for council approval. When our people are in danger, we act. This is not negotiable. This is not up for debate. This is who we are as a species." The chamber erupted in protest. Dozens of representatives tried to speak at once. The arbiter called for order. When the noise died down, Linda continued, "But here is what you need to understand. We do not abuse this capability. Look at our record. In the 6 months since the Keller incident, how many special operations have we conducted?" She brought up a display showing human military operations. Only three. 2 hostage rescues and 1 extraction of medical personnel from a war zone. That is all. We do not use special forces for territorial expansion. We do not use them for economic gain. We do not use them for political pressure. We use them to protect human lives. A Keller representative stood. "But how can we trust that? How do we know you will not expand these operations?" "Check our history," Linda replied. 100 years of spaceflight. 47 special operations missions total. Every single one was defensive. Every single one was in response to a threat against human citizens. If we wanted to use these forces for conquest, we would have done it already. But the capability exists, argued a Draxian diplomat. You could use it for other purposes. Yes, we could, Linda admitted. Just like your species could use your naval fleet to attack peaceful neighbors. Just like the Vorlians could use their economic power to starve smaller nations. Just like the Zatharians could use their military to conquer border worlds. Every species in this council has capabilities that could be abused. The question is not capability. The question is intent. Ambassador Vorn stood. As humanity's main rival, his words carried weight. Ambassador Martinez makes a fair point. The Zatharian Empire has reviewed human military actions for the past century. Their use of special forces has been consistently defensive. They have shown restraint even when they could have used more force. Several representatives looked surprised. The Zatharians were admitting that humans showed restraint? However, Vorn continued, this does not address the Council's concern about oversight. How can we ensure these operations remain defensive? Linda thought carefully before answering. This was the key moment. What she said next would shape human relations with the galaxy for years to come. I propose a compromise, she said. Humanity will agree to provide after-action reports on all special operations conducted in Council space. We will explain what happened, why it happened, and what the results were. This gives you transparency without compromising operational security. That is not enough, several delegates shouted. It is all you will get, Linda said firmly. We will not give you advance notice of operations because that could endanger our people and the operators trying to save them. We will not ask permission because delays cost lives, but we will be transparent after the fact. You can judge our actions. You can condemn us if we act improperly. You can even vote to expel us from the Council if you believe we have abused these capabilities. She looked around the chamber. But understand this. If you vote to regulate our ability to protect our citizens, we will ignore those regulations. If you threaten us with sanctions, we will accept them. If you try to stop us by force, you will fail. We are not leaving our people in danger because you are uncomfortable with how we rescue them. The silence in the chamber was heavy. Linda had just told the entire Galactic Council that humans would not follow rules they disagreed with. This was not diplomacy as most species understood it. This was humans being humans. Blunt, direct, unwilling to compromise on core principles. Finally, Crystal Song, the ancient Vorlian arbiter, spoke. Ambassador Martinez, you are essentially saying that humans consider themselves above Council authority on this matter. No, Arbiter. I am saying we consider protecting our citizens more important than Council politics. If that makes us difficult partners, so be it. But it also makes us predictable. You know exactly what will trigger a human special operations mission. Do not take our people. It is that simple. A long debate followed. Proposals were made and rejected. Arguments were heated. But eventually a resolution was drafted and put to vote. The Council acknowledged humanity's right to conduct rescue operations while requesting transparency through after-action reports. The resolution was carefully worded to avoid seeming like the Council was giving permission or claiming authority over human operations. It passed with 70% support. Many species voted yes not because they liked the resolution, but because they accepted reality. Humans were going to protect their citizens regardless of what the Council decided. At least this way there was a framework for accountability. Linda returned to the human embassy after the vote. Commander Jake Morrison and Captain Lisa Hayes were waiting for her. "How bad was it?" Jake asked. "Could have been worse," Linda replied. She looked tired but satisfied. "They are not happy, but they understand. We will provide reports after each operation. That keeps them informed without compromising our ability to act. The after-action reports will be useful anyway," Lisa said. "Transparency builds trust, as long as we keep showing restraint and proper targeting. Other species will eventually accept that we are not a threat to them, just a threat to anyone who threatens us," Jake added with a slight smile. 3 weeks later, that point was proven again. A criminal syndicate operating in the outer territories made the mistake of kidnapping a human merchant ship crew. 5 humans held for ransom. The syndicate thought they were far enough from Council space that human authorities could not respond quickly. They were wrong. Task Force Phantom deployed within 18 hours. The operation took 30 minutes. All 5 hostages were recovered. The syndicate's main base was raided and its leadership was captured. Linda submitted a detailed after-action report to the Council as promised. The report was reviewed by Council security analysts. They noted the speed of response, the precision of the operation, the minimal casualties, the effectiveness of human intelligence gathering. The report confirmed what everyone already suspected. Human special forces were the best in the galaxy at this type of mission. But the report also showed restraint. The operators could have killed everyone at the syndicate base. They could have destroyed the facilities. Instead, they neutralized threats, captured criminals alive when possible, and turned them over to local authorities for trial. This was the pattern: overwhelming capability, precise application, proportional response. It was how professionals operated. And over time, it changed how other species viewed human special forces. The fear remained, but respect was added to it. On Earth, at the training facility in the mountains, Lisa stood before another group of candidates. These were the people who wanted to join Task Force Phantom, who wanted to be operators. Most would fail. Some would succeed. All would be changed by the experience. "You are here because you want to be part of something important," Lisa told them. "You want to be the person who brings people home, who saves lives, who operates in the dark places where others cannot or will not go." She walked along the line of candidates. "But you need to understand what you are really signing up for. We are not heroes in the way most people think. We do not get parades. Most of our missions are classified. The galaxy fears us, and that fear serves a purpose. But it also isolates us. Then why do it?" asked one candidate. "Because someone has to," Lisa said simply. "Because right now,